Today I will show you how to use a well-fitting trouser block to create other types of pants. I'm going to start with a slack, which is also a type of a dress pant. It fits a little bit closer to the body. And as a matter of fact, if you watched my video on fitting of a trouser, what I ended up with is a pant that fits like a slack. By that I mean my leg is narrowed enough on the outer seam and on the inseam on front and back that technically this is no longer a trouser, this is a slack. So a slack keeps the same crotch curve. I'm not going to shorten it, but if I wanted to end up with a true slack, I would have to raise it by 1/4 of an inch. So I will show you where that would go. I'm going to use green marker for all slack changes. So this is my crotch curve. This line right here, this is from the block pattern that we did 2 weeks ago. And it's in a broken line. And below it, actually, 3/4 of an inch below it is where the crotch points meet. This is a classical trouser crotch line. A classic trouser does not touch the body in the crotch line area. It hangs 3/4 of an inch below. And the difference between a slack and a trouser is that the slack is a little bit closer to the body, only 1/4 of an inch. So I'm going to measure up from this line, from the actual line, from the solid black line, I'm going to go up by 1/4 of an inch. There, I have a new line now, and I am actually not going to do anything else. What you noticed is that because I went up by 1/4 of an inch, my crotch curve got a little bit shorter right away. So it doesn't make any difference to me because I would probably, if I wanted a closer fitting pant, I would probably shorten the crotch curve anyway. But if I wanted to keep the crotch curve, I would just mark where my new crotch point is. Remember, the crotch point is where the front and the back crotch points meet. And I can redraw this line, which I can do right now. With the French curve, I'm just going to keep the line as it is, except I am going to take it a little bit higher, 1/4 of an inch. So now, if my body is at the broken black line, the green line is where the pant is going to sit. So the pant still does not touch the wearer's body. And I'm going to do the same in the front. I'm going to keep the length of the crotch curve and just make it go 1/4 of an inch higher. If you found in your fitting, and I hope that you had a self-fitting, if you found in your fitting that your crotch curves are a little bit too long, you don't have to redraw the curve. You can just shorten the crotch curves naturally, as this would happen with the trouser when we raise it up by 1/4 of an inch. What other changes? I'm not going to make any other changes because in this area, in the upper foundation area at the waistline, the pant actually fits me at the way I like it. But depending on your body type, depending on the difference between a waistline measurement and a hip measurement, you may have some changes which I will discuss with you now. So for example, if you have a curvier hip and a smaller waist, you may have more than one dart. Just like we may have more than one dart in a skirt if you have a large circumference difference between hip and waist. You shouldn't have a very big single dart. You may have a second dart. So what you would do is, if you have a second dart, and I will put it in with green broken lines, so you can see later when I take detail photos. If you have a second dart, it would be 1 1/4 inch away from the first dart towards the side seam, right here. So if I had a second dart, it would be the same, it would be exactly the same length as my first dart. And I'm going to give myself a dart of the same size as my first dart. This is my imaginary dart in green, okay? So if you have 2 darts, what you would do is you would eliminate the second dart and take that difference that you need out of the side seam. So if this dart for me would measure 3/4 of an inch, I would take 3/4 of an inch out of the side seam. Okay, I will take a French curve and I would make that adjustment. I will take detailed photos later, not to worry. Okay, this is what I would do. So now in this area, I transferred my dart. Instead of having a second dart closer to the side seam, I got rid of it, and that particular change went into the side seam. And I would do exactly the same on the back. So I will now give myself an imaginary second dart on my back, 1.25 inches away from the first dart. It's going to be the same length, and it's going to be the same, it's going to have the same intake. So there's my second dart, and I would do the same thing. I would now cross this out and take this out of the side seam. There it is. And I will grab my French curve and make exactly the same adjustment. Okay, like this. Where does this adjustment stop? You can stop it at the level of the dart, but my darts are really, really short, so it makes for a very bumpy and unattractive transition. So I took it a little bit lower. I don't think it will make any difference in the fit if I had a second dart, which of course I don't. What other changes do you make? And you can narrow the leg of the pant in the knee. I have the knee line marked here on front and back. And you can make the same adjustment to narrow the pant at the hem or the floor level. So traditional trouser on the front has 4.5 inch width on each side of the knee. Sorry, yes, 4.5 inch on each side of the knee in the front, and a 3.5 inch on each side of the crease line or the grain line at the hem. Okay, the back is always wider than the front to facilitate the transition from the buttock to the knee and to accommodate the fuller calf. So on the knee level at the back, the width on each side of the grain line or the crease line is going to be 5 inches, 5 inches. And at the hem or the floor or the wherever you put it at the ankle level, it's going to be 4.5 inches. Okay, so 4.5 inches. And so I'm not going to do this adjustment because when I measured my trouser, or what is now my slack, this is exactly what I have. I have 4.5 and 4.5 at my knee in the front, 3.5, 3.5 on the front at the hem. I have 5 inches and 5 inches on the back, and 4.5 inches, 4.5 inches at the floor of my hem. When I was doing a fitting of my trouser last week, I discovered that for my height and the way I'm built, the wider trouser leg was not really suitable for my body type, so I narrowed without any measurements. I just narrowed the leg until I was happy, and what I ended up with is I exactly these measurements. So these are the things that you would do if you were turning your trouser pattern into a slack. I will now show you how to turn a trouser block into a jean. I'm going to use a red marker, and so here I wrote jeans in red because I already have green to distinguish a trouser from a slack. So slack is in green and jeans are going to be in red. I'm going to start at the foundation. Is there anything to be done with the foundation? Well, it depends. Depends on the type of fabric you're planning for making your jeans. Jeans can be made out of anything. I have several pairs of jean style pants that are made in summer weight wool, and that fabric does not stretch. So my jean looks like a combination maybe of a slack and a jean. It has traditional styling with the yoke on the back and pockets on the back and slash pockets in the front. And it's quite a slim fitting leg. But I actually did not change anything in the foundation except one thing. I raised the crotch point line all the way to where my body crotch point line is. So when you're making a jean, it's supposed to touch your body at the crotch line. So I'm going to do this now. So this is my crotch line. It's marked right here at the broken black line, and I'm going to retrace it in solid red. So you can see right away that this would shorten the crotch curve of the front and the back quite significantly. And this is where we need to make a choice. I like the length of my crotch curve because it doesn't cut into my body at the front or at the back. It sits very comfortably, and it just skims my body in the front, and it skims my body in the back, and I don't want to change it. I don't want to change the length of it. So the length of it will only change because it's going to sit higher and touch my body in that area. So I'm just going to mark in red my new crotch point where the front and the back are going to meet. And I will take a French curve, and without changing anything except it's going to go higher, I'm just going to maintain the same crotch curve. This is the front. I will take detailed photos later. You probably cannot see it from that distance, but I will do my best. Okay, so what I have done is I have maintained my crotch curve. However, because it went higher, it became a little bit curvier. So I think that this is too curvy in the front. I think the back looks very similar to what it was in green and the way it was in black. But I think this crotch curve in the front is a little bit too curvy. I really don't need such a curvy line. So I'm going to make it a little bit less curvy with a French curve. Okay, so I am going to cross out the original front crotch curve line, and you will see in detailed photos after the video how this looks. Women traditionally don't need such a curvy crotch curve in the front. There's only one exception. Some women have in this area a prominent pubic bone. It's the way the skeleton is built, and if you find that whatever pants you buy, particularly jeans, if you have a lot of tightness in the front, when you're making your own pattern, you would deepen the crotch curve to make it a little bit more comfortable to wear and to look a lot better. I'm not going to change anything else from the crotch curve up. So the foundation for me fits really well. If I make these jeans out of a stretch fabric, so for example, the kind of fabric that skinny jeans are made from, such as denim with a lot of lycra, maybe 3 or 5% lycra, they would give me a lot of stretch. And I can tighten the seams later. I'm not going to touch the waist. Everything fits me the way I like. I now have my new crotch curves that will fit my body, but I need to tighten the legs a little bit more. So the way we tighten the legs is in red. I'm going to write down, and then I'm actually going to draw the lines on the front. I'm going to start with the front. So on the front, I will have 4 inches on each side of my crease line. Okay, so I will now measure 4 inches on each side. Okay, so So I made markings at the knee. I'm going to lose quite a bit, almost an inch on each side. And I'm keeping the hem exactly the same. So I will go from 4 inches on each side of the crease line at the knee, and I will keep 3.5 inches. I will write down 3.5 inches at the hem. Okay? What will happen on the back? We still need a little bit more room on the back. So instead of 5 inches on each side, I'm going to have 4.5 inches. 4.5 inches. 4.5 inches. So I will measure 4.5 inches on each side of the crease line. So there we go. I lost about the same, maybe between 3/4 of an inch and an inch on each side, and the bottom, the hem, is going to be 4 inches on each side. So I am going to measure 4 inches. Okay, so I made all of my measurements, and now I'm going to draw a new outer seam and the new inseam. There it is. I just connected the crotch line with the knee. Now I will go from knee to hem. Okay, I will use a French curve to work on the inseam. So I am now going from the new crotch point right here, marked in red, and I will connect it with a not very curvy, fairly flat curve with the knee, and I will switch to a straight ruler and connect it with the ankle. Okay, so there's my new front for the jean, and I'm going to do exactly the same thing on the back. I will go to the crotch line and connect it with the knee on the outseam. And then connect it with the hem. Like this. And switch to a French curve and create a not very deep angle here. I think I need to do it in 2 steps. Like this. And like this. And I'm going to blend it a little bit because I have an angle, so you will see it in a moment. Okay, there we go. And now I'm going to draw a straight line from knee to the floor, the hem. Okay, so there's nothing else. I'm done for my type of body. You will see when I take close photographs of this that I have raised my crotch point. I did not do anything else in the foundation. I'm going to keep my darts because next week I will show you how to lower the waistline of a jean created. This is a high-waisted jean. It's right at the anatomical waist. We're going to lower it to a low rise and ultra low rise, and we will need those darts to create a curved waistband for those kinds of jeans. And so after I raised my crotch point, I drew new seams for the outer seam, side seam, and the inseam. I narrowed it at the knee, and I narrowed it on the back at the floor. On the front, I left it the same, and I did the same thing for the back. What you need to do now is walk the pattern. By that I mean all the seams that you're going to sew together, such as the outer seam on front and outer seam on back. And the inseam on front and the inseam on back, of course they have to be the same length, but we're keeping everything else the same. What happens if your trouser or your slack had a little bit of extra room in the hip, because this is how you like to wear your pants, and this is how it suits your body. What you can do is you can take a little bit off on the sides to bring it in a little bit tighter. Before I complete this lesson, I want to tell you that a word of caution is necessary for me to tell you. If you had a fitting of your trouser and you found that your crotch point, the black line right here that we created in the pant, if it sits right at your body now, do not make these adjustments because you will not be happy with the result. The foundation will become too tight and too short. It will dig into your body and be very uncomfortable. So before you proceed with a slack and a jean alterations, you need to make sure that the trouser fits you the way I described in my trouser fitting video. And the most important part is that the crotch point on the trouser sits 3/4 of an inch below your body.